Hello everyone, Marco Montemagno here, Digital Domination Summit, and today another great guest from Japan, the founder of Gengo, Robert Laing. Hey Robert, how are you going?
Hey Marco, how you doing?
Excellent. Every time that I have a new interview, is unbelievable. There are always problems, and I'm doing interviews with the most amazing technical people in the world, and there is always problem, so this is unbelievable. The first person who will invent a system to do easily these kind of things will be a billionaire, because it's unbelievable. So many technical things to put together. All right, but we did it, and Robert, I'm so happy to talk with you today, because I'm really a user of MyGengo when the name was still MyGengo in the beginning. And for guys, if you don't know the service, just go there, check it out. It's unbelievable if you need to get your things translated. I've been using Gengo to translate articles, posts, short phrases, short sentences. So I really always thought it was an unbelievable service, and I wanted to talk with you, Robert, about Gengo. First of all, give us a little bit of context of where is Gengo now. I mean, how big is the company? What are you doing? When did you start? Just 1 minute intro about Gengo for the people watching.
Yeah, sure. So we started about 4.5 years ago in Tokyo. We founded the company, started doing the service in about 2009. At that time, we were just two guys, so me and my co-founder Matthew. Raised a little bit of money at the beginning of 2010 from Dave McClure and 500 Startups, and now we've grown the company since then to be about 35 people in Tokyo, about 10 people in San Mateo, Silicon Valley, and we've raised, I guess, sort of $19 million to date. We just closed a Series B round at the beginning of this year, and now, a few months ago, we translated our 100 millionth word. So we've done 100 million words translation to date. So, that growth curve has been quite nice. And this year we're just trying to do more.
Impressive. But you're not Japanese, Robert. So I'm doing the biggest gaffe in my whole life, but you're not Japanese, right? So why did you move in Japan?
I'm okay at Japanese. I don't want to give you the idea that I'm absolutely fluent or anything like that. Certainly when I moved here, so I married my wife about 8 years ago. And she's Japanese, but she was living in London at the time, so we met. And I thought it'd be kind of fun to live in Japan, and she was like, oh, okay, we'll move back to Japan then. So we moved to Japan about 7 years ago. And really, when I arrived in Japan, I didn't speak that good Japanese at all. So the language barrier for me was a real issue. And also, I was working on web design projects with my co-founder Matthew. So we were working on projects, and I was always needing some translation. And he had been in this position at Sony where he, as a half Japanese, half American guy, was always getting asked to do translation. And so we had this kind of two sides of the same coin kind of thing. And I ended up like asking him to do translation and asking my wife to do translation. Okay. And that's not really scalable, right? No. And from his side, he was always getting annoyed about people like me asking him to do translation all the time. So we just wanted to make a really simple product that would, solve that need that we both had.
Right. Tell me one thing, Robert. If I go on Gengo today, yes. I just go there, and there is a nice interface where I just say, okay, or I upload a file that I want to translate. For instance, yeah. I have a Google document, and I upload the doc, or I just input the text, and I immediately get a quote. So I already know how much money I will spend for the translation. Yeah. So from the user point of view, is always, for me at least, it was always a magical experience, because I just upload my stuff, got a quote, submit, pay, and then I got the translation super fast from someone. That's it. Yeah. And I always wonder, how can you make that? So, and I was reading about your network of translators, thousands of translators. How did you build such a big network? Number one. Yeah.
So I think, the important thing, as you mentioned, like the experience is very instant. And we wanted to model the experience that you have like on Amazon. If you remember from before Amazon, you had to go to the bookstore and choose the book, and but from Amazon it's just like one click, and iTunes one click, right? And before Gengo came along, getting a human translation with one click was impossible, right? But we knew that it's one of these things where on the surface it seems very, very simple, Like above the surface, you're like, oh, I just clicked. But underneath the surface, it's actually pretty complex. So yeah, we have 9,000 translators. We knew that from the start we were going to have to qualify these translators. Like a lot of people can say, oh, I'm a translator, but are they any good? You need a test to figure that out. And so we implemented testing. So anyone who wants to become a translator at Gengo has to pass a 2-stage testing process. And once they've gone through that process, they can then enter this pool and they get access to jobs. But the quality control isn't over there. So we check the first job that they do. Depending on the result of that, they'll get checked subsequently more or less times. And basically our job is to make sure to keep that quality consistent regardless of whether you order like today at 3 p.m. or next week at 6 p.m. or whatever language you're ordering. It's our job to make sure that's consistent. And so we do a lot of work underneath to make it like a one-click option for the customer.
But on one side you recruit a lot of translators and you select them and you kind of verify that they're good. But how can you handle the process? I mean, what happens when I send a translation? The translation is sent to 9,000 translators, or just a piece to a bit to someone, a bit to another one? How does it really work?
Yeah, so we offer about 35 different languages or so. So there'll be a specific pool of translators for each language, and then within that, whenever a customer orders a job, it used to be just first come, first serve. So whichever translator was fastest at clicking, they would get the job. But now we're a bit more sophisticated. And so if you're a translator and you got a good quality score on the previous job, you'll get better access. Or if you know how to do jobs quickly and you got a good quality score, you'll get even higher access. And so there's some translators who get first access to jobs. But within that, it still is competitive. And so translators are really, they have to be pretty fast to click if it's a competitive pair. And we even have translators who've tried to build bots, which will scrape the page and then automatically click the button. And so we had to build all this stuff around stopping the translators from using bots. But yeah, it can be very competitive. But the good thing about that is that for translators who want to pick up something casual, they might be like on the bus on the way to work. They can pick it up on their smartphone and start translating. A 200-word job, they can do it really easily, and that means they've made $5 on their journey to work as opposed to doing nothing. So that competitiveness and that easy access is pretty good for those guys.
Robert, how did you convince in beginning translators to join the platform? Because now it's easy. I mean, you say we are Gengo, we have this amazing platform, we have customers. It's easy. But in beginning, how did you convince them?
Well, we've always tried to be. We have one of our values is by the people for the people, right? And so we've always tried to be as good to the translators as we are to the customers. Okay, so as a translator, traditionally there was always a lot of admin to do, and so translators, on our site we charge on a per word basis, and translators normally charge on a per word basis. But as a freelance translator, if you're just charging per word, often you're doing a lot of admin, like invoicing, negotiating with clients, sending files back and forth, like answering comments, all this kind of stuff that isn't really translation. And so what Gengo offered from the start was this way to say, well, I don't need to do any of that admin. I'll just do simple translation work. And so for translators, that's quite compelling. You can sign up on Gengo for free. It takes a bit of time to take the tests, but once you have and once you've passed, you can just say, oh, I've got a bit of time, I've got 20 minutes, I can do a Gengo job. Whereas for other translation jobs, that 20 minutes of translating would include maybe half an hour of admin time, so they wouldn't really be making as much money. So trying to be appealing to translators in that way has always been important. The other thing we've always done is we've always paid consistently, like every 2 weeks. So we never miss payments to translators. Whereas if a translator works directly for a customer, they don't know. The customer might pay them on time, they might not pay them at all, they never really know. So being very, very consistent with translators has also helped us. But also I think a lot of translators who work for us, they just want to try something new. They're internet savvy people, they're trying to have some fun, maybe do some easier work than they normally do. Like a lot of the content that we translate is kind of fun, so it's a lot more fun for the translator to work for us sometimes than to work for their normal job.
That's interesting. Let's talk about customers now. Think about a company that need to be international. I live in UK, but I'm Italian, as you understand from my British accent. And the funny thing is that if I think about countries like Italy, I don't know. Wait, by the way, you added Italian language in the very beginning, and that's one of the reasons why I started to use Gengo straight away. Why did you add Italian? That only we Italians speak, and people in Swiss, I think, in a little part of Swiss. Why did you add Italian?
Italian is actually a very popular language for our customers to translate, and so in the translation world, a lot of people say figs, right? So figs, it means French, Italian, German, Spanish. Okay, so Italian's in there. We also had quite a few larger enterprise customers early on who wanted to do Italian, and it's just one of those things where it's up there. It's not our most popular language. I would say the most popular right now would still be Japanese. We do a lot of Chinese, Spanish, Russian, Portuguese, but Italian's up there. So yeah, you shouldn't be too shy about your language.
Cool. So tell me one thing. If I'm a company, one big question today is I need to go international. But going international means doing a lot of localization things for your website and for everything you do. And one of these aspects, obviously, is related with translations. What are your best tips, having the opportunity to watch during these years all the translations made for so many companies from so many people? What are your best tips to companies that really want to go international and they need to translate? I mean, where do they start from? Which kind of languages choose from? I mean, do you have any specific tips on this?
Yeah, that's a huge question, by the way, but I'll try to give you some specific. First of all, we speak to a lot of companies that go global at different stages, different size companies, all that kind of thing. Normally, my general advice is be smart about it, know that it's a risk. And so, like, whenever you go international, it's not all roses, right? And so we encourage people to try, if they're just starting out, just to test little bits of content. You don't need to translate your whole website and all your documentation. You can try with some little bits of content. And you can do that especially if you've got interested users overseas who are already trying your product without it being localized. Those are the best guys to try with. And so Hootsuite, which you probably know is the Twitter management tool, they did that very successfully in Japan. They had some users who were trying out the product already, and so they got those guys to be advocates and testers for the service as well. The other thing I would say is that there's different kinds of content on the website. And so if you think about it, if you go to coca-cola.com, the big brand message on the front, that's something that's very, very difficult to translate, and it needs to be super high quality, and it really needs to be done by someone who truly understands your business. Whereas they might have lots and lots of subsidiary pages with like user reviews or message board content or little articles that aren't quite as high level, and so you shouldn't need to pay as much to translate that kind of content. And so we work with customers often who they might use an agency for this really high-level content on the homepage, for the advertising, for the message from the CEO maybe, but they'll use Gengo for thousands of product descriptions or user reviews or lots of articles on other pages. And so you've got to think as a customer, okay, what are the tiers of content that I'm going to translate? So you can be smart about how much you spend on each tier of content. The other thing we talk about with customers is that you can, as we said, test out stuff quite quickly. But you've got to be confident that if the test follows through, it's going to be worth it. And so we just try to get customers to plan their content a lot more than they might if they didn't talk to us. Because the last thing you want is people translating too much, feeling like it costs too much money when they could have just tried out a little bit of content first. Yeah, we talk to customers about this stuff all the time, and the other last thing I would say is testing, doing language by language is better than trying to do like 15 languages at once, because translating and localizing your site and getting all that technology ready, it can be overwhelming if you try to do like 30 languages at launch. Just trying like one language and getting that process down, that's smart, and then you can expand from there.
Robert, how can I one stupid doubt that I always had. I had, for instance, a lot of videos that I got transcribed, and then I went on Gengo to get a translation. And for some of those videos, I asked for translation in Chinese or languages that I have no idea if the translation is right or not. So every time I thought, I trust Gengo because you did the selection, but I have no idea if it's written something about cooking while I'm talking about technology or not. How can you verify? How can you be sure that the translation is really matching your content in the original language?
So I guess we actually have three types of users, and so one type they know the language, they're a native speaker in that language, so they can check it. Another type, they often have someone in their company or in their team who they can check it with. And then the last group, I would say, often they'll use their users. And so if you've got a YouTube video and it's for the Chinese market, you ask your users, is this good? And often you'll find people who can help you either verify or they'll correct it if it's no good. But yeah, getting the users as that final check is often like a really good way to check. We're thinking of introducing something in the future that will allow our customers to do that. But obviously the problem is, we're the ones doing the translation. So if we sort of say, oh, we also checked your translation, it was good, then how can you trust us anyway? But yeah, using the users and asking the users, often you'll get very, very honest feedback. And
right.
Users can be most critical, so they're probably the highest.
The final judge. What happened with the videos? I think some time ago I spot a kind of partnership with YouTube where you could get your video translated using Gengo straight from the YouTube interface. I didn't really see it around, so maybe it was my mistake. I didn't really check that again. But what's happening with video? Because a lot of companies now producing videos and they want the videos to be translated. And I would say until a few years ago it was really a pain in the ass because to translate a video was a nightmare, subtitling a nightmare and so on. What's your recipe for that?
Well, yeah, obviously subtitling tools have moved on massively, and so you've got YouTube itself, you've got Amara, you've got other people offering like .sub, some really good subtitling tools, and then Viki, which you might have seen, a company solely focused on crowdsourcing translation of subtitles, was acquired by Rakuten a few weeks ago for $200 million, and so there's a lot of excitement in that space. We did a partnership with YouTube at the beginning of this year, so. Now, when we just launched it, it might have only been available to a few people, but now any YouTube content owner who has a transcription of their content can order translation through YouTube. And so that's a sort of 1 or 2 click solution. It's very, very seamless. You order the translation, it gets put back into the YouTube automatically, and you can share it straight away. And since the launch, that's been pretty popular with our customers. The other thing we do is we also
Sorry, Robert. So it means that if I'm on YouTube, I got my video transcribed. I just order the translation, and the translation once I accept it, go back straight to my YouTube video, so I don't have to upload captioning or captions and so on. Yeah,
that's right. I want to see if I've got a page for that. Anyway, it's on our website, but yeah, it's within the YouTube UI. Yeah, so there'll be it's a little button that says Request Translation, and then you can just click it right there. And it's pretty cool. I really hope it works for you. I don't know if it isn't, but that's been pretty good. And then that's for obviously sort of C2C or prosumer video makers like yourself, I guess. And then for enterprise customers, we also work with a partner called 3Play Media. And so they'll do the whole thing. If you need lots and lots of videos to be transcribed and then translated, you can do that through 3Play and Gengo. And so for us, it's become a pretty popular area. I would say like a year and a half ago, we weren't really doing much video at all, and now it's quite a significant volume for us. And so what we're doing for translators is creating better tools for translators so that they can do translations of subtitles better. There you go.
Is this one the page?
Yeah.
YouTube caption translation. Perfect. Yeah.
That's the page on our site, and then if you go onto YouTube as a content owner, you can basically just get it from there. So this just explains how the process works, and it's pretty straightforward once you've created your captions.
Yeah. Also because otherwise, you have to every time I translate stuff I get the transcription, then I have to go on your website or to make it translate, and then I have to go to upload the caption file, but so yeah, definitely here is it makes much more sense. Very interesting.
Yeah, and we love this. Working with Google is great, and we have a few more things that we're going to be able to announce with Google in the future. So, this for us is a really good example of bringing translation really, really close to the customer. Like, if you're on YouTube and you're a content owner, you don't really even need to know that Gengo exists, and you can get translation, and it's just a couple. And
yeah, perfect. Tell me another thing, Robert. Just changing topic. You said you received finally a large amount of funding, and so I was thinking about the startup listening to our chat here, and obviously when you launched, having Dave McClure, which is a very famous investor, 100 startups, obviously 500 startups, obviously helps. But I mean, then you definitely went a long way because you get a good funding. What's your, again, could you elaborate on that? What are your best 3 tips to startups looking for funding? I was just moderating TechCrunch Disrupt in Italy, and everyone talking about how difficult it is to get funded, but on the other side, if you have good numbers and tractions, wow, then you can get the right investor, but not all the investors are the right one. So it's a huge topic again. But from your experience, I mean, that you lived on your skin, what are your tips?
We obviously had kind of a unique experience because we're kind of like non-Japanese people in Tokyo with a startup that, we have a Japan-based company, but actually it's a US Delaware company with a Japanese subsidiary. And so it's like we could sort of raise money from Japan, we could sort of raise money from the US. A lot of US Silicon Valley VCs don't like companies that aren't in Silicon Valley. I mean, that's the truth, And so we had to do this kind of global fundraising thing, and like we were very lucky to find Atomico, which is the company that did the fund that did our Series A. They're ex-Skype guys, so they all understand global from the start. And also they had a desire to see Japan succeed for startups, and so. We certainly talked to a lot of VCs over the lifetime of Gengo, and sometimes we were fundraising in very good circumstances, sometimes not so good, and I guess my first tip would be that the no or the maybe is never really going to turn into the yes. The people who really like your business and really want to invest, they're going to be excited about it from the start, and so. As an entrepreneur, it's very tempting to listen to a VC who's just saying like, yeah, we're kind of interested, and oh, that means I might, but like when they're interested, I've found that they'll really go for it, and you've got to remember that. So that'll be my first tip. I don't know. My second tip would be if you're not an English speaker yet, speaking English pretty well is a massive boost for fundraising, because most VCs in the world are in Silicon Valley. They get to pick whatever company they want to invest in, and so if you're not able to communicate in English, you're really cutting down your fundraising options massively, even if you've got a great business, And then I guess the third thing I would say is that as we've gone through stages as a business, things just change. Things change about what investors are looking for, and so at the angel stage or the seed stage, they're really just kind of looking like, is this an idea that's kind of interesting? And, is the founding team a really good founding team? And that's all they can really judge on. Whereas when you get up to Series B stage, it gets a lot more serious nowadays. You can't just have a bunch of users. You've got to have some kind of traction, ideally revenue. And you're really looking at the company from a sort of set of fundamentals. What's the income statement look like? What does your business really look like in terms of revenue? And when you reach profitability, is that an interesting business? Can it scale in the way that we like as an investor? And so you have to, if you want to stay on top of things as an entrepreneur, you've got to go through those stages, and you can't just rely on the same sort of fun and quirky stuff that people like at the seed stage. You've got to be operating like a real business when it gets to Series B, and I think some people struggle with that. They just want to play with the product still, but when you're at the Series B stage, it's a lot more serious.
Yeah, it's a different level. Tell me one thing. You enter just a few minutes more, and then I'll let you go. John, I will stay here to talk for days, but
I'm very happy to be here all day.
Tell me one thing, Robert. You entered a market which was definitely not easy, at least in my opinion. I didn't do homework about the translation worldwide market, but I think it's a huge market, and there are so many players. I mean,
Sure.
I think how many translators or translating companies there are all over the world. I think also in Italy there is one famous translated or something like that in Rome.
Translated.net. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you entered a market that was definitely not easy. Have you ever thought about, gosh, there are competitors that are too big and they have a lot of money? When you launched, was only you and your co-founder. It was just that you followed your instinct, or you found an angle, a niche that was different from what the other people, the other companies were doing. What was your strength there?
Yeah, so I think one of the great things about being a startup founder is that you're naive. You don't know all the problems that are ahead, and if you did, you might never have started the company. But I think that's the good thing. That's why it's good to be naive sometimes. Certainly, translation market is huge. It's a $30 billion market. There are some really big players like Lionbridge, public company in the US, SDL, public company in the UK. And then thousands and thousands of smaller agencies in between. I think we've kind of been fortunate enough to be the company that's doing it our way, and we don't really come across competitors who are doing it the Gengo way. There might be someone who's got like a great tool for localization, or someone who's good at delivering really high-end translation. But in terms of people like us delivering translation at scale, at a really good price point with an API, the list starts to narrow down to very, very few. And so we're lucky enough, when we talk to a lot of customers now, is that we're not really in a pitching situation against those guys. But certainly, there is a competitive landscape. Certainly, we are sort of going to butt up against some people. Certainly, some of the big incumbents are now getting more interested in crowdsourcing.
Right.
I think that our approach has always been, don't really look at the competitors too much. Certainly don't look at them for guidance. What we try to do is just do it our way. And we know that by doing it the Gengo way, like, we've still got a lot of Gengo problems to solve. And so over the next year, our product roadmap is about us, and it's about our customers. It's not really about dealing with a competitor, like one-upping someone else.
Yeah, so focus on yourself.
Yeah, focus on what we're really good at and really own it. And then the last thing I would say is, like, for any startup that's trying to raise VC and grow that way, you've always got to be in this market where you want the market to be really big, because it demonstrates people are interested in it. It demonstrates there's customers there. You don't want it to be too small and uninteresting, because it probably means you can't grow that much. And so translation market for us seems like, it seems attractive, and it's definitely tough, but it's very, very interesting as well. It's a very deep problem space, so I like it.
Right. Robert, you were talking about an API. That I think this is very interesting, because I think most of the companies, traditional companies, they definitely don't think about, first, they probably don't know what API are if they're not in the tech industry, but most of all, I don't think they think that they can get translation using an external service that automatically can give access to translation. So I think it's very interesting. How is this Gengo API working? Do you have any interesting case studies or case history that you can say, wow, that was really a great way to use our API for translation?
Yeah, so firstly, we launched the API because we are tech people, and we sort of thought, well, everything has to have an API, and so the idea of like putting human translators under an API was just sort of a logical next step. We launched it in 2010. Since then, people have done all kinds of cool stuff. Some of my favorites are just like the little side projects that people do. So some people would integrate translation into the development of their application. So they'd just be like building stuff, and it would automatically send and get a translation back. We've seen other people do fun stuff, like they would like grab song lyrics for the top 10 and then get the translation of those song lyrics and send them back. Which is always fun. And then some of the bigger stuff is really cool. And obviously, we talked about YouTube earlier. That's an API integration. Like when we launched the API, wow, to imagine that YouTube would connect to that, like that's just like a dream come true. And we also have companies that have things like localization platforms, and they're using the API to then order translation and get it back again and send it to their customers. And so we work with a company from Jordan called DACWAC. And DACWAC will help you serve up a proxy version of your website into different languages, or Phrase App, for instance, and Transifex. These guys have built great localization solutions on top of the Gengo API. And we really love that stuff because it's not a case of me going out and selling Gengo to those guys. They were just looking around for a translation API, and then it existed in Gengo. Like, we love that stuff because then they build their business on top of our API. And they kind of like assume it exists in the same way that we build our stuff on Amazon Web Services or other APIs. And and I just love that way that the web connects like that. You have services built on services built on services.
And Robert, was like that also with YouTube? I mean, or you just call Larry and Sergey and say, Larry, I'm here. I have the API. You can use it now on YouTube. And you say, oh, thanks. Robert will be great. Also because they have their automatic translation that never works, by the way, but is improving. I mean, they have so many data. So how do you work with that?
Yeah, well, Google Translate is a great tool, and actually the product manager of Google Translate is the guy who put that together with YouTube. And so, he has a mission to help people access translation throughout a bunch of Google products. And so that was obviously a bit more of a long-winded conversation, but it was, actually for working with a big company, that was pretty efficient. Like Google, they know how to build stuff, great developers. We got that project done pretty smoothly. So yeah, that would be on the bigger end, I guess, of the more complicated end. But I still find it a lot of fun working with those kind of companies, and with just working with our enterprise customers as well. So there's a bunch of stuff like, you'll never see, it's kind of private, where even an agency might be ordering translation through us and then serving it to their customers, or internally, like a big enterprise customer would be using it. And that's often really cool as well. It's cool when people are like, oh, a translation API, that's really nice. I never even knew that existed.
Yeah,
makes
and also you can build service startups or products using your API and creating the user interface for the so that sounds very good. What's next for translations? What do you think in the next 5 years? I always ask these questions about the future, and I know that the future, who knows? But what do you think will happen in translations? Because there is this dream of instantaneous translation in every kind of language that you speak or what you do, everything, and boom, everything is translated in every language possible. How far we are for a real universal translation? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, certainly machine translation has been 10 years away for the past 50 years or something. So I don't see the instant thing happening just in terms of pure text and great quality translation. However, I do see a lot of interesting stuff happening with real-time translation just on like Google Glass or on your iPhone. We work with a company called Wago, and they have a great iPhone app for just instant translation like that. I think that kind of fun use of machine translation, where it's just like giving you a gist and combining that with video or smartphones, that's obviously increasing, and it's obviously really, really useful. In terms of stuff that's a bit closer to us, I would say we use machine more and more and more, and not in terms of really machine translation, but in hinting and translation memories and glossaries that we can give our translators, so that when you think about that example of the guy using the smartphone on the way to work, so that person, she can pull up a memory of what someone's translated before and just point and click and drop a word in, and so she might be able to translate something in half the time. And that mixing of human and machine and a point and click smartphone interface with a huge crowd of people, that's the way we're certainly going, and that's the way we think you're going to be able to bring down the cost of translation, increase the speed of translation. And so that kind of near instant thing can still happen, but at like a human quality, which means it's publishable, and it means that it's just a lot more usable for everybody.
Right. Robert, just last question. I asked to all my guests, what are the best 2-3 apps that they use on their mobile every day, because you know you get the feeling of what really people do.
I'm looking right now. I just have to check.
It's interesting. Okay, I tell you the categories that are not allowed. So if you have kids, I'm having the 4th kid soon, so I have tons of Topolino, Mickey Mouse games. No, this is because are the kids installing that. And so, but what you really use for your productivity, for your business, for your work, or you think that it is super cool now and you want to share with us?
Okay, yeah, I think I can do that. So first one is Gecko board. So do you know Gecko board?
Yeah, it's like a dashboard to visualize data.
Yeah, so we use Gecko board in the office. We have like 4 or 5 screens, like big screens in our new office, and they show Gecko board, but also I can get it on my phone as well. And so I can pull up dashboards, and it's cool. And the design is really, really nice, and I'm just a sucker for design because I'm a former designer. So Gecko board would be my first one. You know, I have to admit, even though you think I'm really good at Japanese, I'm still learning Japanese. And so I have this thing called Mental Case. It's like a flashcard app. And so Mental Case there's a Mac app on the laptop, and also iPhone and iPad. And so you can sync your flashcards, and they do this like spaced memory repetition technique where when you're learning stuff at the beginning, you practice it very, very quickly again. But after you've learned it, the spaces are bigger. So it's sort of a way of increasing your ability to memorize.
Interesting. Tell me again the name.
It's called Mental Case.
Mental Case. I'm using Duolingo now. That I find it interesting.
Yeah,
but it's something similar, or is it a different technique?
It's a bit different to Duolingo in that Mental Case allows you to store anything. So it's not really about language or whatever. It's any kind of flashcards. Like if you wanted to like take a course or in anything, I don't know. But I use it for Japanese. You could use it for learning like HTML terminology or something crazy like that. You know.
All right.
So Mental Case. Oh wow. And then the other one is a bit more of an entertainment one. I'm sorry, but it's like. I love this so much that I have to talk about it, is NBA Game Time.
All right.
And the NBA has done this kind of amazing thing where it's actually easier and more convenient to watch NBA games outside of the US than it is in the US. And so they have this great app for the iPhone, for the iPad. It's on Apple TV. You can subscribe to all games for like $100 a year. And so in Japan, I can watch any NBA game I want. And what's bad is I go to the US, and then if I try to watch it there, I can't. Like they block it based on IP in the US because they want people to watch it on the TV. So
crazy.
So anyway, I think that's oh, wow.
Excellent. Yeah, super cool, super cool. Robert, thank you so much. Good luck for everything. And the sun is also shining here in UK after our interview, so it's a sign of destiny.
I did it. I love your haircut, by the way.
It's my, you know, we have this kind of look that is a Bruce Willis style.
Bruce Willis. Yeah.
Great, Robert. Thank you so much. Gengo, guys, just check Gengo. Use it. It's an amazing experience. I can really grant it. And good luck for everything, Robert.
Great. Thank you very much, Marco. See you later.